This is Talk the Devils, the athletic show dedicated to Manchester United. Coming up today, United head to Nottingham, looking to make it 4 wins in a row. We'll take a look at the challenge that Forest will present, with, of course, being on their 3rd manager of the season already. And we'll also take a closer look at exactly what Ruben Amorim has changed at Manchester United to turn things around. Everyone's here. Carl and Andy are at home. Laurie, you're in New York. I didn't expect that.
Yes, important work business. But obviously I've got up nice and early to come and see your smiling faces. It's 6:30 now in New York, AM time. Still dark outside. But yeah, excited to talk about Manchester United. I can't not come on a podcast when United have won 3 games in a row and miss it for a whole week. So I need to take my opportunities when I can get them.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny, we've had a lot of messages this week about the revisionism to a degree of Ruben Amorim in charge of Manchester United because of these results, because it feels so different around the team at the moment. And we're going to get into some of the detail and exactly what he's changed in these 3 matches, Andy, to work out, why we feel there's been this about turn in form. But for him, how do you think he feels now after everything he's been through across the last 12 months? Because we're coming up to a year of him in charge at United now as well.
I think he's actually more emotionally stable than most of the people praising and criticising him. So even when United win, he seems pretty balanced, and even in defeat. There's a few times where he's talked about, I didn't want to join mid-season, but I think now he sees the benefit of that. And I'm pleased for him, because we're going to talk positively. We could be doing a Liverpool FC podcast this morning, and we'd be talking about 6. Liverpool have got a big song about six times, and it's pretty hard to lose 6 domestic games on the bounce, and they've done it. And I get why Liverpool fans are angry. There's football teams trying to win football matches against Liverpool, and that's just not fair. I think if there should be a change in legislation, maybe managers could submit their team 5 or 6 days in advance so that Arne Slot can work on shape. And it's just not what you expect from Liverpool. I've got deep, deep sympathy for Liverpool supporters.
Salty Mitten's back. I'm quite glad about that. Carl, we had a message from Daryl on email saying, listening to a lot of critics now praising Ruben Amorim this week, I feel so happy for him, feeding into what Andy was saying as well. Amorim's critics, we don't know any of those, do we?
No, none on this podcast, really. No, my tongue is firmly in my cheek there. I think previously I've said how many things could you write down on a piece of paper to keep Ruben in a job before you say he's doing a good job? And I think now the order has changed. Now we can say top 5 reasons for Ruben Amorim to remain Manchester United head coach is we can write he's doing a good job right now. And that's because he's done a thing he has publicly said repeatedly he wouldn't do. He said he would not change. He said he will not change, and sometimes you have to change the man instead. But what we've seen, especially in the lead up to the Sunderland game and ever since, is a number of changes that have made Manchester United a better football team, and a series of performances that can be built upon that should hopefully mean Manchester United's low period of last season can be banished to the shadow realm. Look, for the avoidance of all doubt, I like it when Manchester United win. I like it even more when Manchester United win in a way that looks sustainable, because that means they're going to win next week too.
Yeah, definitely. Changes or tweaks though, Carl?
Yeah, he hasn't changed his system, has he, Carl? It's actually more formation rather.
And that was the main point
on that. Yeah,
he has changed his formation. He's changed his formation in certain phases, and I think this is really important to say.
They were always doing that. They were doing that in games, Carl.
They were. So the system and the formation are 2 very different things, and we've spoken before on this podcast that we shouldn't get too bogged down in. We shouldn't use them interchangeably. But one of the more notable changes between how Manchester United were playing in the derby and games before that and how they played against Sunderland ever since is when they don't have the ball and they're trying to defend, the 2 10s drop deep to cover the central midfielders. Right? That's a very important key change to protect your central midfield areas. What we saw to great effect against Brighton is you've got De Ligt and Luke Shaw pushing really high up as well. So that is also protecting the central midfielders. There's been a lot of chat in the last 3 or 4 days about, Casemiro's really turned it around. Casemiro looks great. One of the reasons why is because Amorim has changed the way his team defends to close off some of the spaces around Casemiro. So now he has less to manage, and now he can play closer to his usual self. Like, Amorim's done the thing I think everyone wanted him to do, which is be open to making some changes. And look, he said he wasn't going to do it, but he has. And thank God he has, because now the team's good and that we can all be happy.
I think he still stayed consistent, though, in terms of, because the whole point was back three, right? I know that he can have different moments in games where it changes even to a back four. He had that last season, and so I think he's personally stayed, resolute to that, I guess, stubbornness that people were having, a go at him for, understandably. I think certainly, I've questioned whether that was, getting the best use out of the players that he had, but obviously that's what he wanted to implement, and so
we've all questioned that.
Results. Yeah,
we've all questioned that.
So I think
that was one of the
that's
main,
fundamentally the point.
Yeah, that was one of the main arguments, really, wasn't it? The main points of criticism, that the system wasn't getting the best out of the players. I remember having the conversation, which players are benefiting from playing this way. But actually, now you are seeing players who look like they are better suited to the system that United are now playing with the tweaks, stroke changes that Amorim's made. Just before we get into a few more of the details on exactly what has changed across these three matches, Andy, we had a question on one of the YouTube comments from the last video from J-Sam. It says, is it a coincidence that since Sir Jim Ratcliffe gave Ruben Amorim the dreaded vote of confidence during the last international break, there's been an upturn in form? What do you think?
I think it is a coincidence. As I said on the last podcast, I think it was the right thing to say, because I think most Manchester United fans after the Brentford defeat didn't feel that things were going to be right. And there was a lot of fevered talk about whether Ruben Amorim would lose his job or not. I think it was I don't agree with everything that Jim Ratcliffe says by a long way, but I think he was actually spot on there. And it's inconceivable that he stays in charge for 3 years if results are not coming, but results have come. One thing I'd say about Amorim is, right from his very first meeting with Manchester United, in like a 5-hour meeting, he was adamant that the way he saw football was with three at the back. But what he also said was it is a flexible system and that he would evolve it at the right time. He said that right from the start. And he said it was important to have tactically versatile players who could play in multiple systems. So there is some vindication for him, but it's only 3 wins. Last season was horrendous in terms of the 15th, but it's looking more optimistic now, and I think that pleases all of us.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get into the detail then. Critch wrote an article. He's not here today because Laurie's back. Laurie's replaced him, so I'm sorry about that.
He did too well in the show in the studio, so I thought I'd better show up and make sure he didn't get too comfortable in that seat.
On the last one.
Yeah, no, that was nice. Thank you, Carl. That was a nice little touch.
Let's get into some of the detail of Critch's article, because he's sort of gone into the specifics and looked at some of the data, Carl, on exactly what has changed in these last 3 matches. So I think I'll start with actually more or less the last sentence he wrote. He said, United are now playing faster, quicker, more direct football, and that is fitting with a Premier League that's changed to be faster, quicker and more direct this season. So it's almost hand in glove to the way that the league's changing, and it feels like United are riding that wave. At times it's felt like they've been crashing against them, but it's with them at the moment.
Yeah. It feels for the first time in a little bit Manchester United are in step with the tactical trends instead of being 2 or 3 steps behind.
Yeah, exactly.
We are now beginning to see some of the problems that Amorim talked about last season, the need for physicality or the need for left-footed players. Those are now being addressed. So I keep going back to what he said after they beat Athletic Club about how he said it's very important for your right side to tend to have that left foot. It's really important to have wingers / wing backs who are more offensive than defensive. And it's really important to have players that can play on the inside as well as the outside. And now you've got 2 left footers playing, one at right wing back and one at the right side at 10. You've got someone who can go inside and outside in Cunha. In terms of physicality, De Ligt has spoken about how he's had a proper preseason and he says he's feeling fitter. The team as a whole doesn't feel as soft or lightweight as it was last season, and that's changed as well. So it's a really, really good piece from Critch and from Mark Carey as well. Highly recommend it. The granularity on even where Lammers is putting his goal kicks is really, really nice.
Yeah, and his distribution, Laurie, has been a major feature. And obviously, the other coincidence of this run of form is the fact that he's been in goal for all the wins so far. But long passes, 114 long passes from the goalkeeper in the past 3 matches. And in fact, United were going more direct under Altay Bayindir's goalkeeping as well earlier on in the season. So United actually across the season so far, I think we're just about far enough, Carl, are we, to start mentioning some of these data trends. We're 1 match away from the Carl Anka threshold. United have played the highest rate of long passes from the goalkeeper in the Premier League this season, and it's up 76% on last season. That is a key difference straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that does go to what Carl's touching on earlier in terms of that pragmatism. Obviously, we saw it with Erik ten Hag in his season, but I think as much as it's been a kind of reaction or a kind of insurance policy against the issues that were coming into United's game last season, I think it is also a tactical decision to think, well, this is how we can actually be better anyway, beyond just sort of, I don't know, putting the belts and braces on to avoid, conceding the ball in our third, basically, because that was another stat that Critch picked out that was really interesting in terms of only Spurs and Southampton losing the ball more in the defensive third last season, and now that rate is gone down from 5.4 per game to 2.4 per game for United. And I do think there's a bit of Lomans coming into the team, being fresh to the Premier League, being a young goalkeeper, and them just saying, we are absolutely not going to risk anything here. You've got good kicks anyway. Let's just make sure that you actually start your career at United in a positive way as much as you can, and just go long. Don't worry about it. If we're trying to get you to pass it out a little bit here and there, maybe there's some confusion that comes and there's a mistake that happens, and then all of a sudden, the focus is on you as maybe not being ready for this. So let's just clear that all up. So I think that's a little bit of a consequence of that. And I do wonder if then over time that then evolves. So you've got, obviously the direct nature of it right now is working. You wonder how teams will then react to that and counter that. And so you obviously then, I would probably say, you have to try and add the short passes into your game in the right moments, but that's maybe to come. I think this could probably still be a good way to approach games for the foreseeable. And yeah, I think it's just it kind of taps into the wider Premier League change of ethos, really, and it's fun, right? I know that people have been criticising the Premier League for being too set piece orientated, and obviously the long throws, and I guess you don't want it to get too stop start, but it does remind me a little bit of football United back in the day when Schmeichel would get it and kick it pretty long. I remember watching, I don't know why I was watching it, but the 2-1 against Liverpool in the FA Cup third round, when 2 late goals wins it at Old Trafford, and the pace of that game was fast, just because it wasn't a kind of let's pass it out and let's build up slowly. It was kind of like a bit end to end, really, and you can maybe say that's not as finessed as the kind of football that Pep Guardiola was bringing to the Premier League, but I personally think there's a certain joy in that, certainly.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it's just about covering up Manchester United's weaknesses either. It also feels like it's designed to play to the strengths, and having very specific game plans like the one at Anfield, where you are purposely kicking long to then pick up the second balls and swarm around the midfield to gain possession higher up the pitch, is United playing to their strengths as well, rather than it just being about, like we talked about with Erik ten Hag, with David De Gea, we want to play short, but actually it's not working, so just kick it long. Yeah. Obviously, there's more to it than that, clearly, for Erik ten Hag as well. But touches in the defensive third, like you mentioned, Laurie, last season, no side had more touches in their defensive third than Manchester United. This time around, only Arsenal have got less. So that is a huge shift again, and shows the sort of minimising of risk around the sort of goalkeeper area and the defensive third. And Andy, as well, the other thing is, even in open play, there's been more longer passes. United third overall in the Premier League for that, and no side have attempted switches of play more. And I think that feeds into the new players. Bryan Mbeumo on the right-hand side has been a very good reason to switch possession to the right-hand side a lot. Benjamin Sesko being up front is another reason why the crossing accuracy maybe has improved as well. So, all of these data points point to how United have managed to sort of improve things, and how they've managed to play to their strengths as well, with the new players in place in this system that seems to suit them better than the ones who played it last season.
Good piece by Critch. Good data, better players, more confidence, the confidence of having a goalkeeper who's more trusted is clear to see. His long balls were a takeaway from that piece. The accuracy of them. You've got the free forward players who were brought in because United were not scoring enough goals. I think I said that Šeško was brought in because he had cleaner feet than Rasmus Højlund. He made better runs than Rasmus Højlund. Interestingly, from that piece, he's not been the crosses which United are putting in towards a player who was partly bought because of his aerial ability are not increasing. But we can see with our own eyes. And I think confidence is a major part of it as well. And the way that Casemiro has become a really important player, Bruno Fernandes dropping back. But I think a fundamental is you've got better players. But also, De Ligt is having a really good season. Luke Shaw is back. This isn't a team that's been hit by injuries either. But tactically, United need to be much smarter. And Laurie made a point about criticising the Premier League. I certainly have about the way they've changed fixtures, but the league this year is brilliant. It's so unpredictable. There's so many trends where you get teams like Liverpool winning the first 5 and everyone thinks they're just going to storm it, and then they manage to flip it the other way and go the other way. United start poorly, go really strong. Crystal Palace start unbeaten, then fall away. Aston Villa start badly, start winning. The 3 teams who've been promoted are punching well above their expectation, their way, especially Sunderland. And it makes for a really good league because last year there was some criticism that the 3 teams who come up go straight back down. The title had been decided earlier on. If you compare it to Spain, to Germany, to Italy, it's a really, really interesting league this year. And that is to the credit of the Premier League.
The thing is, Carl, it feels like at the moment it's only been 3 wins. We don't want to get too carried away with things, and there are still issues for Manchester United to sort out. But for the moment, it feels like I said before, United are riding the wave of this change. It is actually benefiting them to. I've said it loads of times, especially at Old Trafford. The more chaotic it gets, the better Manchester United seem to be. The more the crowd gets behind them, and the team seems to thrive in that sort of circumstance. I mean, before the opening goal against Brighton, there was 2 penalty shouts, an attempt at goal, and then finally a goal, all within a few minutes of each other. And the energy in the stadium that the team fed off, it all seems to go into make the right ingredients for what's going to bring the best out in United.
Yeah. Manchester United want to play fast. Ideally, any football team that's got Bruno Fernandes at its core will want to play fast. And if you've got players like Cunha and Mbeumo, it's a good idea to play fast into them as well. So Amorim has now made. This team is now performing closer to the sum of its parts, which is something I didn't feel before in the past. And when the parts are as talented as the members of that front 3, you now have confidence, momentum, however you want to describe it. Andy's been very clear here. Better clay makes for a better pot. So now we've got...
Has Andy said that?
No.
Cheers, I can't imagine Andy ever saying that.
Carl's
I
making
like the image.
I do as well. He's making me sound smarter than I actually am here. Yeah. As I was saying, if you've got
better
the only
thing you're not into. It's about the only thing you're not into, pottery, innit?
A better pot.
Better clay makes for a better pot. And he's incredibly intelligent, wizened man.
Sure, but no, you're peerless for the metaphors, Carl. So hopefully United can end with some pots this season.
There you go. I think this feels. It almost feels like uncharted territory. It's been so long since we've genuinely talked about a Manchester United team that's had momentum. And look at us, we've all got smiles on our faces.
Look at us.
Who would have thought?
What we're concerned about, let's just bring a measure to the conversation. What we're still concerned about?
For me, Manchester United want to play fast. What happens when the team tries to make them play slowly?
And that could happen this weekend, right?
That could happen this weekend. There are certain connotations when you play a Sean Dyche team. So what happens when a team tries to throw sand in the gears? Or what happens when you play against a team that is very content to let Lamons kick long and go, okay, you can kick long. We're not going to try and push up and put pressure on you. What we're going to do is, what happens when you try and face a Glasner team, for example, who aggressive middle block and they shoot off the line when they think there's a loose ball. So those are things I'm interested in. The 30 minutes or so when Casemiro was off the field, followed by the 10 minutes or so where Šeško went off and Xerxes went on, and that loss of shape against Brighton. 2 or 3 things I'm concerned about there, but I'm pulling the face and I'm pausing here. I've got faith for the first time in a little bit. I don't know. I got faith for the first time in a long time that these problems can't be too debilitating for what the United want to achieve this season.
Laurie, Andy?
I mean, it's probably, is it, if sort of key people get injured, like does then the quality drop off? You know, if Mbeumo, you know, gets injured. I mean, obviously, I think, Carl, you mentioned this on the last pod, didn't you? The AFCON element of the season is going to be an interesting one to negotiate. So maybe that's just something to bear in mind.
I think I'm right in saying it has a bigger impact this season than previously as well. I think you could miss more matches while the tournament's on this time than past years. We'll do a proper deep dive into that a lot nearer the time because it's not until January. So
yeah, but I suppose that I'm talking about hypotheticals there and kind of
course,
not. The question I suppose more is about this current iteration and the current players. What could teams? I totally agree with Carl that teams could just sit low and then but I think to be honest, Mbeumo and Ahmad, that was my sort of question with this system. That are you getting the best out of Ahmad? Because as a right wing back, is he doing too much defensive work? Does he actually have the capabilities to do that? Are you not getting him in those positions where he does his most damage? But obviously these last 3 games he has been getting in those positions, and you just think that Mbeumo and Ahmad together linking around the edge of the box, they could prize apart deep defences. And obviously if you chuck Bruno in there as well, if he's kind of been able to get advanced, which I guess you would expect him to against a low block, then I don't know, I feel like they have got that means of getting round those types of defences. I think you just want them to keep taking the chances they're creating, because obviously that was a big issue at the start of the season, obviously last season, not scoring the chances, but the finishing, certainly, for the Brighton game, even though they still missed chances in that one, 4 goals you can't complain about. So I kind of feel like at least that's pointing towards it, but I just hope that doesn't creep back in, that there's kind of, errant finishes really.
Well, they'd gone from underperforming XG to overperforming XG now, haven't they? Basically, it's been a complete swing, which, 2 penalty misses are going to contribute to that too as well, I suppose. But Andy, what about you?
What can go wrong? Injuries.
Everything can go wrong. I just mean, what specifically is concerning you about still the way that United are? I mean, the one thing that concerns me, not to put words in your mouth, was how we went from 3-0 up to 3-2 so quickly, and like how brittle is the confidence still? How delicate is the balance of how firm and certain we are about how far Manchester United have come in these past 3 matches? Yeah,
because it's only 3 games, and if you look at the second half performances of Burnley, of Fulham and Brighton when the substitutions were made, United were weakened significantly. Is that psychological? Is that because Casemiro is really important? It's pretty worrying when you see teams surge back against Manchester United. I was 15 or 20 minutes of the Brighton game and the Burnley game at Old Trafford, even though United won both matches. I'm like, whoa. Even Sunderland had the moments. Now teams are always gonna have the moments. So I still think it's embryonic, if that makes sense.
You've used the term fragile confidence in the past. You still think it's fragile?
I think it's strengthening all the time. It's a natural human reaction. You're beating Liverpool away. Then again, everyone beats Liverpool. You're beating Sunderland at home, then that's going to give you confidence. You're beating Chelsea at home, and I do think they're genuinely good players, and they were properly scouted as well. The data and the diligence was done on the summer signings far, far earlier than in the previous year, and we're seeing it. And the reaction when Mbeumo and when Cunha was signed, it was genuine, sort of solid. Šeško had been watched for a long, long time. I hadn't heard about Lemons, if I'm honest. I think that was a more recent thing, but he's been fantastic so far. But he will have bad games. He's 23 years old. So as long as there's a general shift and that United do finish in the top 6, the problem is, I'm smiling as I say this, because you keep on winning, you're going to tell me there's a chance. and it's lovely, isn't it? It's a really nice feeling, because there's been so many bad moments following United in the last couple of years.
I agree with Andy that it feels like the players they've signed are all good players. So, okay, they might not work, but you feel like there's that base layer there of quality at least. But it is funny when you were talking there, Andy, thinking about, obviously United doing the scouting and the diligence and everything. But if Liam Delap had said yes, it would have been Delap and Cunha and Mbeumo. Yeah. Maybe they still go for Mbeumo, but it wasn't a guarantee at that point. So it's kind of funny how, sliding doors happen. And, obviously you've got Enzo Maresca talking about Liam Delap getting sent off last night and not being happy with him. So it's kind of interesting how things work out sometimes.
Did he get sent off? Chelsea can't stop getting players sent off, can they? It's amazing.
Yeah. 2 bookings.
Isn't it nice to look at other teams with problems?
Yeah.
Anyway, right, before we jump into the conversation and previewing Nottingham Forest, I need to remind everyone that there are still a few tickets left for our London show, Talk of the Devils, live at Soho Theatre in Walthamstow on the 11th of November. That's a Tuesday. All the ways to buy tickets are in the show description, so go and have a look at that. It'd be fantastic to see you there. Like I say, only a handful left now. And just to sort of tease you, Andy, before we go to that theatre, because I know you've already been looking up pictures of the layout on the internet. This is an email from Ben, who's a Mankin exile in London. He says, in case you didn't know, the Soho Theatre Walthamstow was at one time the Granada Theatre. It was started by the Bernstein brothers, Sidney and Cecil. Sidney later founded Granada TV, obviously a Manchester Northwest institution. So when you do the show there, you'll also be connected to a little bit of Manchester history. So there you go.
Wow, it looks beautiful. And did you know that Granada, as in Granada TV, was named after the Spanish city of Seville? No, Granada, obviously.
Thank you.
Was it actually? Yeah.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I think it was her favourite city, and it's obviously a beautiful place, and yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. Right, let's talk about Nottingham Forest, because that's Manchester United's next port of call, isn't it? And a chance to continue these smiles and continue the momentum, Carl. It is so important that United continue to build on this. I do not want to spiral again next week. What chance do you give them of continuing it?
Good. Look, I have faith. I have faith in the way Manchester United are currently playing. The players are playing in a really... They've got momentum. I sound so surprised when I say things like this. Cunha scored. I'm not looking at any... We're not talking about any United player right now. I go, they haven't scored in a little bit. They've not been playing well in a little bit. What do we have to do to get the most out of them? Because they're all on job, right? And the first team now looks to be settling into 5 or 6 really, really capable, trusted lieutenants. And I think they're going to crack on and get a result this weekend.
Let's hope so. Nottingham Forest's recent form, not great, to say the least. They've lost the last 3 Premier League matches in a row, including Sean Dyche's first league game in charge at Bournemouth last weekend. He did win the first game that he had, which was in the Europa League against Porto, a 2-0 win at the City Ground. That's actually the second game that Forest have won all season. They've lost 8 of their 13 matches in all competitions. It's a big reason, obviously, why they're onto their 3rd manager of the season already. It's the earliest that a Premier League team has ever had 3 permanent managers. This is his first home Premier League game, so in charge of Forest. So that there is unknowns to the situation, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but can I bring it into the conversation? His kind of tactical plan for United, had he been in charge of the club instead of Ruben Amorim when he was on the overlap and basically saying 4-4-2, I could have got better results, to this point than Ruben. You could maybe argue that because obviously Ruben was trying to do something different.
He was on there.
Yeah. But he hasn't changed to 4-4-2 at Forest. I think it's still a 4-3-3. I just watched a 3-minute highlights package of their victory over Porto. So obviously I've done my research just like Andy. That was 2 penalties. So I don't know how much you sort of read into that necessarily, sort of kind of softer ones as well maybe. But he hasn't, I suppose he can't do loads different. He can't suddenly change the system totally, because I think his kind of motto for coaching is to come in, see what you've got and then adapt accordingly. And so, he's obviously tried to get them a bit more solid, because Postecoglou just felt like a bad fit from the get-go, didn't he, really? I mean, I think he still had players that were loyal to Nuno, and then he's obviously trying to change it and push them higher up the pitch, and it just, it was I think you've got an owner in Marinakis that accepted he'd made a bad choice there, and Dyche then is another direction entirely. It was fascinating to see that also Roberto Mancini was spoken to for the job, as David Ornstein was reporting. And so, you kind of think this is a club that is trying to, you talk about identity, Manchester United. I mean, this is certainly a club that's sort of striving between a few different identities, and that you'd feel like hopefully is an advantage to United, because there's still that kind of turbulence going on. But yeah, he's obviously going to get them. I think they'll sit deeper, won't they? That's what they, that's what brought them success last season. Hit on the counter, get your faster players in the team, because Postecoglou was kind of leaving them out, wasn't he? But yeah, the run of form is, it's that one opening day victory over Brentford. And that's it in the Premier League, isn't it, for them in terms of 3 points? So it is a real opportunity for United to turn around that sequence of Forest victories. I didn't realise it was 3 in a row for them in the Premier League.
Against United, the form against United has been good.
It was
one of them games at Christmas was one of the worst ones. That defeat at Christmas.
Yes.
That was still Ten Hag then, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the most recent victory is where Langer goes from a Manchester United corner and just
that's it. Garnacho and Dorgu.
So they'll be closer to what they were under Nuno, and you're totally right. They're going to be compact when defending, and then when they win the ball, it's going to be Gibbs White or others trying to get it to their wingers. They've got players like Callum Hudson-Odoi. You've got Chris Wood, who came off a great finishing season as well. So look, they want to play direct the same way Manchester United want to play direct. They've got this Forest squad has 2 or 3 players you look at that you go, I think you could quite comfortably make the jump and play for Manchester United one day. But
are you thinking about Elliot Anderson?
A little bit. I'm also thinking about someone else, 1 or 2. I think when Bruno Fernandes was playing as a number 10 in a 4-2-3-1, I thought Morgan Gibbs-White might one day be a potential successor to Bruno Fernandes in that position, but things have changed now to 3-4-3. But that Forest team has quite a bit of talent in it. I do also think they've had just a bizarre summer window. They spent more than 100 million on a collection of players that, if everyone is fit, I don't think they can play all of their new signings, which is never a good sign of a good window.
Has Andy been giving them transfer advice, just like he's been taking on the data analyst role at Liverpool?
Just to pick up on what you said before about Dyche on the overlap, Laurie, as well. There's been a lot of that quote going around this week and the clip being played on social media. He does go on to say that maybe we'll see next season, that things change. So he's almost predicting, in a way, in that interview, what has happened for United across the last month or so.
He said they need results quickly, didn't he? Because he knows the industry, the reality. Yeah. And to be fair, I suppose United have booked the trend there with they've kind of taken a lot of pain with Ruben Amorim to get to this point. And again, it's 3 victories, suffering. So but he was right in terms of the results. You need them pretty quick. It actually probably got longer than perhaps we all expected, maybe. But yeah, I just think it's really interesting. He's obviously been in football for such a long time, and he knows the game inside out, but still would have a different approach to someone like Ruben Amorim. So it's I think it's a really fascinating contest, actually.
Yeah, and he definitely was given more patience than a Nottingham Forest manager, for example, who have changed obviously a lot just of late. The one thing, Andy, normally about changing manager is that you expect there to be a bounce, and you sort of think it's not a good thing to face a team when they've just changed who's in the dugout. But actually, United's record against Sean Dyche's teams is really strong. So he's only won 1 of 18 meetings against Manchester United as a manager. And Ange Postecoglou, obviously, who replaced, had only ever lost 1 game against United. He'd never lost a Premier League game or a game in English football against United while he was at Spurs. The match that he lost was in 2000 in the World Club Championships in charge of South Melbourne. So actually changing managers in terms of the history of facing those 2 bosses is good. In 2000?
Yeah, I was there. It was in Rio de Janeiro. I saw him. He was only in his early 30s. Me and my mates went to the team hotel. South Melbourne were just like semi-pro players. It was just like you could have a chat with the players before the game, and then they lost against Manchester United.
Scores in that game, doesn't he?
Can't remember.
Did they win 2-0?
They won 2-0.
Sure. Definitely. Yeah. It was. I hope these statistics carry on. I refuse to acknowledge the last victory of Ange over Manchester United, because we've agreed never to talk about that again. I like Sean Dyche. Don't know him. Never had any dealings with him. Know people who know him really well. I hear good things about him. He actually lives in Nottingham, so it wasn't stretch for him to join Forest. I missed the 20 years when United didn't play in Nottingham. I think it's a really good city. It's a good away ground. They're a proper club. They've won the European Cup twice. It's a good city to go to. So absolutely respect them and hope that they get smashed on Saturday against Manchester United, because they've been a little bit cheeky with the recent games against Manchester United, and natural order needs to be restored.
Well, we've had a message actually on Reddit, our Red Devils, if you're interested in getting involved with that, from Red Flag Flying High 92. Question for Andy. Feeds into what you just said. Any decade-old grudges against any Forest supporters?
Not individuals.
The way you felt about Brighton.
Well, I'm still a bit sore about the 6th round of the FA Cup at Old Trafford in '89. Me and my mate cycled to buy tickets for that. Sound like a granddad saying this, don't I? We cycled from Urmston through Stretford, and we bought tickets for the Stretford paddock, and Forest won in
farthing.
Yeah, ruined United's season. I respect Forest. Yeah, if you want me to pick out a weak point in them, all right, 10 years ago, their average crowd was 19,000. So they sell out every week now. It holds 30,000. They've been on about building a new main stand like for about 1,000 years and haven't got around to it yet. So yeah, 10 years ago, where were you? Did you decide to have a little year off because your football team were not winning as many football matches as you'd hoped? Did you decide to come back when you got back into the Premier League? Nah, I loved Brian Clough. I'm glad they're back in the Premier League. Proper respect for him. They've won more European Cups than Manchester City. So no, I don't really have a beef with Nottingham Forest. That's it.
Okay,
all right?
Well, you tried your best to find one, which, yeah, of course, you can feel however you feel. That's absolutely fine. Let's talk about United again then, Laurie. In terms of shaping up for this game, we don't know yet, obviously, about the fitness status of Maguire, whether there's any other issues going on. But Ruben Amorim's got his press conference later on Thursday. We're recording this late morning. What do you expect the lineup to be? Are we going to see a tweak designed to go up against Nottingham Forest's style under Dyche, or what we're going to see? Yeah,
does Mason Mount come back in? Because forgive me if I'm wrong, but he was on the bench, wasn't he? I know he's got protecting him a little bit. You know, maybe there's, but he didn't come off the bench. For example, I suppose give other players a chance. But I don't know. Does he think that Mount might actually be that kind of player to help pick the passes through a deeper defence that you might expect? And does that then mean Sesko comes out of the team and still, Cunha in there? I mean, maybe that's something that I'd have a look at. Maguire obviously being injured to a degree, although it sounded like he'd be okay for this week, right?
That was the gist.
Yeah, but I don't know if this is the kind of game for him to come back into anyway. So I could see. I mean, listen, the whole point of United not having midweek games is that you could pretty much have a consistent lineup in the Premier League, really, without it kind of really straining the players. And obviously they did make a lot of changes against Brighton as the game wore on. So you sort of think, okay, it's working. So, same again, really. But I think maybe the Mount and Sesko one is the one that would come to my mind, at least in terms of a possible change.
Yeah, because Carl, in terms of the changes that were made in game against Brighton, it didn't really feel like any of the players who came on were pushing the first choice players to replace them for this Forest game. I know it's only a small sample size of them just coming off the bench for the last half hour, 20 minutes, whatever it was. But there's definitely, like you've suggested, a first choice team that seems to be coming a little bit clearer now.
Yeah, I don't think Dorgu had the best time coming off the bench. I don't think Ugarte did either. So wouldn't be surprised if everyone is fit. I think Amorim might just repeat again. It's his press conference in 2 hours from as I'm saying this, so we'll find out the fitness. But I'm leaning towards an unchanged 11 to start on Saturday. The first team, that starting 11, it's working for now. And I think the longer they get time playing with each other, particularly some of the partnerships in the front three and the wing backs behind them, the longer you see Ahmad and Mbeumo play together, I think the better those two are going to get. I know there have been some fears about how it's going to work and is Ahmad going to be happy playing right wing back, but the fact that Ahmad and Mbeumo very clearly like each other seems to help and seems to go a long way. You've seen the dancing, everything there, and I think that's what we're going to try, and I think that might be Amorim's inclination in the next couple of weeks of let's build on the positive momentum we have before we start tinkering too much. I'm
with both of you. I feel really as confident going into this as I did against Brentford away a few weeks ago, and maybe one switch. The one thing that worries me is when Casemiro goes off. So maybe start him on the bench and bring him on after like 28 minutes, just so we can, if you 0-0, then we could just see out the game in reverse order. Now,
did you see Rochdale did that against United? Just on the substitutes, I think they have to play a certain number of youth players, don't they? So they started the game, kicked out a play, and then took 2 of them off straight away because they wanted to have a better go against United under 21s.
Yeah, Robbie Savage did it with his Forest Green team, made the subs after 20 seconds and stuff. I'm comfortable with whoever starts at Forest. If that's Mount or Sesko, I'm fine with it. They're both doing well enough for me to play. It's more the substitutes when they come on, just making sure that the levels stay up.
Because you're right, Carl. I mean, the Dalot as left wing back is probably not. It's not ideal, is it really? So Dorgu, obviously, that's the hope that he can make that his own. But as you say, I don't think he
started Ahmad and Dorgu together yet, has he? As wing backs?
It was Ahmad and Dalot, Sunderland. Ahmad and Dalot.
Away at Fulham, they started.
Yeah. So in this winning streak, they've not started.
Yeah.
They were the wing backs as well. Ahmad didn't play inside.
Pretty sure,
yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, so he's not done it much.
No.
You're right, Ian.
I think if you asked Dalot, he would say he's giving balance to Amorim's game by allowing Diallo to operate with greater freedom. I think Dalot's also become a bit of a scapegoat for Manchester United fans as well. It's not as easy for him playing on the left.
He scored at the City ground, didn't he? From left back, wasn't it? Left full back, did that dribble and great goal.
Yes, he did.
Ten
Hag's first season.
Keep him in the team for that alone.
Yeah,
Anthony scored in that game.
Oh God!
Wow, yeah, I remember it. Be top to score at Forest. I reckon I'd just run out the ground and dive into Trent just for a buzz. Sorry.
You could actually probably do that and then get back in the ground because it is literally right on the bank of the Trent, and it's a fantastic setting.
Great setting
for the stadium. It's a brilliant stadium. I really like the City ground. We talked about Balaba's audition, Laurie, for the Brighton game. We've now got Elliot Anderson's audition or potential audition in Nottingham Forest midfield. What do you think?
Yeah, well, as me and Carl were sort of ruminating on a little bit earlier, Carl was sort of eyeing up, well, I suppose he was eyeing up Elliot Anderson when he was sort of saying a couple of players could make United's team. He then added in Morgan Gibbs-White, who's a player actually I saw come through at Wolves and was really excited by, and then he kind of seemed to kind of go away from being the kind of star player for them, and then his move to Forest has really ignited his career. And
he said United's turnaround has been incredible to see. He's praised the grit and determination of the team and said that the Premier League has missed a strong Manchester United.
This is Gibbs-White.
Yeah. Always liked him. I mean, he's a bit of a Cunha kind of player, isn't he? He kind of gets the ball and dribbles with it and, a bit rough and ready. But Elliot Anderson, I mean, to be honest, I've not watched absolutely loads of him to make the case, very strongly whether he'd be fit United. I mean, I think that I've seen sort of big price tags being spoken about. I've not
very big.
Made my own check. And I just think that just doesn't really stack up to me. But clearly he's a player that's got that physicality and quality. I think his passing is probably underrated maybe. Although I've just mentioned it, so maybe it's just rated. I'd be really intrigued to see how he does against a midfield of Bruno and Casemiro, because obviously that you look at that and think the energy, the purpose of that midfield, the dynamism is what is maybe lacking, but obviously there's different several ways to skin a cat. So it's going to be an interesting battle ahead, and certainly he, I mean, it's kind of funny, isn't it, that he left Newcastle because of the FFP PSR regulation, sort of, it's all this kind of changing of players that went on just before the deadline, and it sort of feels wrong that from that point of view, a guy that's come through at Newcastle's academy, they felt they needed to sell. I mean, I still think clubs can have their own, that they should just handle their business better so that they're not having to sell academy players to get that PSR regulation in order. But he's obviously thriving at Forest as well. So I'm excited to see what he does against United.
You are right. It's pretty sad that a Geordie from Whitley Bay who came through Wallsend has to leave Newcastle United. He doesn't have to, but I'm with you. And obviously he's doing well and it's great, and you can't talk about him without talking about his passing. Hopefully there's a poor game on Saturday.
It's a cue, misplaced pass to Cunha, who then dribbles through and scores.
Yeah, that would be
Bring
nice,
it on.
wouldn't it?
That's what we want.
We're all smiling. Let's hope we're still smiling by the time we start recording the next Talk of the Devils after the Nottingham Forest game. But we'll leave it there for the moment. Carl, Andy, Laurie, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for watching and listening as well. Thanks for getting involved with all your messages too. We really appreciate it. Let's hope this run continues. We'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching this episode of Talk of the Devils. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you've not done already. Like the video and also get involved in the comments too. And click the bell to make sure that you never miss an episode with myself, Andy Mitten, Carl Anker and Laurie Whitwell. There's also our social channels at TOT Devils on Instagram, X and TikTok. Thanks for watching.